Hey everybody, this is cyberpunk, and this is the cyberpunk video about Pluribus, ragged individualism, community, and Hiveminds. Yes, so hopefully, I'm gonna try to not be as spoilery as possible, but we'll see how it goes. This is an Apple TV show, so you may need Apple TV to watch it. It's from the creator of Breaking Bad, or one of the creators of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and also from the 90s, actually. I didn't realize he also worked on The X-Files, so which was a very fun sci-fi show, very iconic sci-fi show from that period. So, also, sorry, there's like really bad allergies. There's really big wildfires, forest fires happening around. So allergies and smoke is going to be acting up. So I apologize. I am not coming down with the ultra happiness hive mind virus. I assure you. I'm not going to be swabbing the inside of my mouth for a Q-tip full of saliva to infect the world with. But anyways, but we'll see how the throat goes. But yeah, I hope everybody had a good. I'm sorry. If you have a chance to watch it, I hope that it is worth checking out. Whether you like sci-fi or not, I feel there's a lot of positive things to say about it. There's also some drawbacks, but we'll get to that later. If you have seen movies, or if you watch a lot, I mean, obviously I'm a big sci-fi person. I mean, sci-fi video games like Neofeud. So a lot of Neofeud is dealing with the science fictional. It deals with science fiction as a whole. It's a kind of meta game about pop culture, Western culture, science fiction, cyberpunk, obviously specifically, and also the it's very like speculative fiction, which kind of like deals with the thought experiments and like what if something happens. Like it's sometimes it can vary. It's a little different from like the space opera, Star Wars sci-fi, which is a little like a fantasy adventure in space. And Pluribus is in the realm of the Twilight Zone, Star Trek. There's Star Trek episodes, particularly, I believe there's an episode called Q Who. Star Trek episodes involving the Borg, and Hiveminds go back, further than that, of course, in science fiction. I think H.G. Wells was one of the first like credited writers describing such phenomenon, where basically all the minds. Well, let's just look that up since we're talking about it. Hive mind meaning like a hive mind or group mind, shared intelligence, collective consciousness, and collective intelligence. Groupthink, associated with groupthink, the desire for harmony, conformity in a group results in irrational or dysfunctional decision making. Sheeple, a derogatory term referring to groups of people who mindlessly follow those in power. I mean, you might recognize this, but actually, we just did a video last week about PSAI psychosis or psychosis, zombification, viral zombifying, and also cyber opium class war and other vectors of future control. So in case you missed that one, this actually kind of dovetails well with that and future control schemes. And so actually a lot of Pluribus actually kind of, Vince Gilligan, he said, I have not used ChatGPT because no one has pointed a shotgun at my head and forced me to use it. So he's and there's an article also I was talking about on the Twitch stream recently, which actually goes into that the creator and also the star, I think it's Leah Seahorn. I'm pretty sure I remember her from Better Call Saul. I think she's one of Saul's colleagues, if I'm not mistaken. Why Pluribus creator Vince Gilligan included an anti-AI message in the end credits. Like, it's actually pretty clear in the end. It says, this show was made by humans in the end credits. A terse but firm anti-AI message, which is unfortunately likely to become a widespread disclaimer. I just want to say, obviously just jumping ahead of myself, but I was, Neofeud and Neofeud 2, all Silver Spoon games are made by humans like myself. However many cyborgs and robots and artificial intelligences and, science fictional ones, Terminator analogs and iRobot-like, characters are in Neofeud. Neofeud is made not using AI. It's made by myself for the most part. I'm doing the writing, music, art, programming, half the voice acting, and there is no AI. There's no generative plagiarism software malfunction, as I've talked about frequently. Malfunctioning, poorly programmed, plagiarism software, stochastic parroting, pattern recognition algorithms that are wasting energy and chips and are a $20 trillion Ponzi scheme that's exploding. So no AI is used in Neofeud or Neofeud 2 or Decolonators or Pigeon with Gun or Indigistar or any of our games. So I just want to say that because apparently that's going to be a big thing. We'll come back to ragged individualism, but since I've already kind of gone down that hole a little bit, and Pluribus is arguably a show about AI. You could probably make a whole 2-hour video essay on why Pluribus, even just the first few episodes, are a show about AI, and like what it's like to live in a world where everyone has become subsumed into a giant billionaire torment nexus creating corporate oligarchy that has made everyone into a Chat GPT clone because they outsource their brain to Chat GPT, right? Or like talking to Chat GPT, right? Which is, again, that's part of what is the, like, as I pointed out in the previous stream, the goal is to disconnect everyone from each other and make everyone relate instead of people having peer-to-peer, human-to-human relationships, right, with 8 billion other humans. The goal is to have 8 billion humans relate to corporations, each one individually relating to corporations. It's actually, I want to like kind of dissect and dice and not really deep dive. It's more like a cross-examine and laterally slice that because there's the community. The reason why I titled it Community versus Hiveminds, there's a very good reason for that, and that's because they're often confused. Certainly, like in Western culture and Western ideological norms and narratives and paradigms. But the actually paradoxically, right, the individualization of AI, where each person is atomized, right, and alone, and they're selfish individuals, right, maximizing their own individual, career, privilege, wealth, etc., but like also cut off from others, right? So the individuals that are cut off from others, that are relating to a corporate construct, right? Because AI is just, it's just whatever the billionaires, corporations want you to hear, right? It's like CNN, but interactive. It's like MSNBC, CNN, and so it actually starts to get complicated because I think like a lot of these kind of shows, Borg, in Star Trek, and Western science fiction and Western speculative fiction, and the thoughts about these. There's actually a lot of similarity between this and Ayn Rand's Anthem, even just to start. I don't know exactly where the show's going to go, but it's unmistakable. It's another book where the worst thing possible happens, which is that people come together collectively, and only there's only one individual left in the whole of an entire country. It's actually very similar to Ayn Rand's Anthem. So so that's where like these kind of kind of oversimplified hypothetical futures where what if everyone lost their individuality, wouldn't that be horrible, right? Those are like a mainstay of certainly like Western science fiction, because and they have, they have anti-community and anti-communist and anti-socialist and Cold War, and that's actually the insistence upon the individual is actually part of the Western hive mind construction, right? Is that we all have to be individual Americans that all kind of practice the same religion and all go to McDonald's and individually choose to individually get our Starbucks. And we're all going to individually choose to have one corporation's 57 flavors of ketchup. But we have choice because we can choose Coke or Pepsi. So we're not a hive mind. Like the evil communist somewhere out there, right? There's someone out there that's all one, right? They all choose Pepsi out there. In China, right? In China, Mongolia, Africa, all these Asian countries. I don't even know who these people are, but they're all forced to choose Pepsi because they're all brainwashed in their hive mind over there. But we choose Coke or Pepsi, and that construction is actually part of what maintains, right? Speaking of control, that's what maintains Western control. It's the illusion that you are some kind of individual, and you're free when you're controlled by billionaire capitalist oligarchs that give you Coke or Pepsi politicians to vote for, and you get the same policy no matter what, even empirically verified by Ivy League institution political scientists like Gillens and Page. Anyway, so anyway, I'm kind of way ahead of myself. I'm sorry. So that's why I kind of titled it "Ragged Individualism." Ragged individualism because Super Karen, aka the main character of this show, played by Leah Seahorn, is she is having new bad days, but she's kind of always having a bad day. When you see like her in the past, you see her like her life. She's just really a miserable person. She is like Les Miserables, I take it back. She's actually like kind of an aristocrat. She's an American aristocrat. She's literally a big time celebrity. She's like a big time. She's like the American J.K. Rowling. I don't know what her stance is on trans people are, but she's like a big time star author. She like sells historical romance novels, and she's like rich. She's like rich. People love her. People like line up in bookstores. It starts with her at this massive book signing. And her like books are at the front of like, I haven't gone to a bookstore in a while because, well, we go to libraries because communism is when people get education and information for free in libraries. But no, in the bookstore, she's actually like, but she hates her audience. She hates the books that she writes. She views them as like vapid, banal, sad, schlocky novels. It's a little bit. That's one of the negatives I would say. The show is written by a 58-year-old cis white guy, and as I pointed out, it's a little bit like who is also a big famous celebrity that has like multiple obviously giant shows like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and he's a Gen X. He's been working on shows since the 1990s. And this guy's got all kind of he's a big celebrity, right? And then he's kind of like writing about a lesbian woman relationship with the iced wife. Kill Your Gays. There's queer people that might point out like it's unfortunate that there is a gay couple. There's a lesbian main couple, and and one of them is this lady, but her partner dies in the first the very first less than an hour of the first episode of this series. So it's just supposed to be multi-season. So that's a, that's a perspective. Actually, I have a video also. One thing I will actually, when it comes to criticisms of this show, which is like, I said this is a good show. I'm not saying this is like a terrible show. I'm just saying like this is just some of my nits to pick, my quibbles, my qualms, my misgivings. Hey Holly, do you know where my video on The Expanse is? I think it's very. You got it? Okay. Holly's gonna get the video to my Expanse. See, they do have a good relationship when it's shown. I mean, luckily, like you get some flashbacks to her Super Karen and Super Karen's Super Karen's come to my window. It's very 1990s Gen X lesbian relationship. It's also like if you're selling books, and it's in the U.S. and she is in a lesbian relationship with her partner, who is also like her manager. Like it's one of the people who helps her promote in her book tour, and is and she's kind of like the Meredith. Is it Meredith Brooks? It's very 1990s. That's Melissa Etheridge. I'm sorry, not Meredith Brooks. Who the hell is that? I say Garth Brooks. Okay, Melissa Etheridge. The girlfriend of her looks like Melissa Etheridge, and it's very like no, I think her she's supposed to be like 50 something. So they are Gen Xers. They are older Gen X lesbian couple, but she has to hide that this big time celebrity lesbian author is hiding the fact that she's gay, and she's writing books, right, that she views them as banal, mediocre, schlocky. They're just like cheap romance about Mediterranean pirates, straight Mediterranean pirates, sweeping young women off their feet in historical romance, and he sails on a sand desert. Reminds me of, what was that? The Monster Hunter movie and The Shadow and Bone. There's a bunch of like these historical kind of semi-fantasy. I'm not sure what the genre is. I haven't like read all of them, but the sailing over deserts and sand is a big deal in a lot of these books nowadays. It's very hot. And then getting with the pirate captain. But she says like these books are terrible. Well, she kind of hates herself because she's writing these terrible books. Or she I don't think they're necessarily terrible books, right? I think actually there's a little bit of misogyny going on there. In a way that actually, to jump to another franchise. And shout out to Frankenstein, by the way. I don't have enough time to review all these movies, but Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro, is a tour de force, that movie of the year already. And also, the whole thing is a painting, no AI. Guillermo would rather die than use AI. Same here. And but in Frankenstein, there's a scene where Victor Frankenstein is trying to hit on Mia Goth's character, and because he's attracted to her, and he says, Victor says, "What are you reading?" Right? She's got an unopened package of books, right? And she says, "Why don't you guess what I'm reading?" Yeah. And I don't know if I got that scene in here, but anyways, you know Frankenstein. I just wanted something on the screen. So, and then when he guesses his first guess, right? So the man's guess, right? It must be some silly little romance, right? It's just some vapid tale of, unrequited love. I forget, he said some bodice ripper, and she's all like, fitting. Yes, I knew you would say that. I knew a man would say that, right? She's actually reading like science textbooks. She's reading all kinds of things, right? Actually, historically, I mean, it's actually true. Actually, women read more than men. Actually, women read a lot more diverse books. Holly has a whole study on. There's actually a whole scientific study on it. Men read like Jordan Peterson's 15 Steps to Become Rich, Successful, and Save Western Civilization. Just like politics, thinly veiled, depressed dude self-help that's titled philosophy, and then military sci-fi, and there's a few other things. Tom Clancy, CIA, the CIA has good stuff, and then there's some Sports Illustrated, but the women actually read like philosophy, history, government, biology, astrophysics, all these things, and they read more actually, and they also read romance too, but that's not the only thing. But anyway, my point is that that's actually a difference in the sensibility between, I think, Frankenstein and Guillermo del Toro is a Mexican guy. He's a Mexican guy. He's unabashedly that. He and his star, the Guatemalan star, were speaking Spanish the whole time to each other. And anyway, I know I'm going a little deep into this, and I probably should go back to Pluribus. But I'm trying to make a point which is that like it's assumed that like also like a movie, a book or a movie or a piece of entertainment that has romance doesn't necessarily make it bad or simple or for simple-minded people. There's a lot of actually misogyny. There's like a lot of women hating in that. There's a lot of patriarchy in that, you know. And I think like that's like kind of, I feel like that's a bit inserted into this, right? Because, you know, it's a Western Anglo-Saxon American man who runs this show, right? And like, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it's a different perspective, you know. And it's kind of like that, and it's also a Gen X, and you can feel that kind of coming through. It's like, why is her relationship fridge? Like, why is it like Holly and I are talking like, man, there are like, you know, like Our Flag Means Death is a really popular gay pirate show, but her character is choosing to make her, you know, romantic love interest pirate a straight man, right? Because she feels like that it's unacceptable to have a gay relationship in a romance novel. And I'm like, there's so many LGBTQ plus queer romance novels. Like I feel like nowadays it's so common. I mean, maybe not the main character, or in some books not the main character, but I mean, even still, like Our Flag Means, you know what's funny? I just had that thought. Because now we're talking about the queerness in this show. In Our Flag Means Death, there is, which is a ship full of gay pirates, right? The chef on that ship, right? That is actually and it's directed by Taika Waititi. So it's also a different sensibility because the showrunner is a brown Maori indigenous person and also a queer person, but the guy in the upper right there, he's one of the gay queer pirates on the queer pirate ship, right? And he actually shows up in Pluribus, which is kind of right. But he's like a straight guy that's just like, anyway, we'll come to that part. So it's kind of like, but my point is that Our Flag Means Death is a really popular show. Like a lot of people know that show, not everybody, but a lot of people know that show and love that show. And it literally involves a ship. There's like a non-binary character. There's like trans character. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, there's polyamorous characters. There's gay pirates. There's bi pirates. There is like at least pirates that are lesbian in some sense. And a lot of it's about exploring, you know, like, you know, that's not all it is. It's just like deals with colonialism. It deals with, you know, it's just comedy. It's just a straight up comedy with Taika, and it's hilarious. But like that show is not like, of course, yes, okay, there's some conservative people, there's some far right people that are not going to be happy with a show like that, but I mean, they're not the ones who tune into, you know, Netflix and Disney Plus and Apple TV. I mean, they don't run Apple TV, you know. They don't run Hollywood, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's a bit weird. I mean, I guess it's like, I don't feel that authors and celebrities need to pretend not to be gay. Okay, there's some anti-transness out there. Of course, there's J.K. Rowling's out there. And, but when it comes to like Hollywood, like, you know, being queer, gay in Hollywood, that's not like like in 2025, that's not like a deal breaker, you know, like that's not like I mean, making super authentic, you know, like I just watched Queens of the Damned. You should check that out as well if you can. That's, you know, it might be a little bit tricky to make something, you know, that real, that intense, like that on point. But I mean, just being a, you know, a queer, gay, lesbian creator, but writing books, making movies or TV shows, it's a little out of date that she has to hide that from the audience. You know, I guess I'm spending a lot of time on that, but I feel like that's part of the perspective, right? This feels like a 1990s show. Like gay marriage is like illegal. I feel like if this came out in the 90s, right, and there's a lesbian author hiding her lesbian relationship, that might make a bit more sense. But like in 2025, we got like all these super popular books. There's like a whole LGBTQ plus sections. Like if you don't have queer romance in a book, it might some people might actually like be like, why is this book so straight? Like all people that read books are like queer people, queer. It's for historical romance. I mean, queer people, queer friendly people, even if they're straight. And so that part feels like a little, that kind of it was one of the aspects that gives you the perspective. Anyway, this is not supposed to be just about that, but I just want to point that out. So back to pluribus and ragged individualism. So in the positives, I'm not saying that's negative. I'm just saying that that's like the perspective of. I feel like that's the perspective of the showrunner coming through. On the positive, though, AI garbage future was touted. The show was made by humans, and he says the AI garbage future touted by the likes of Joe Russo could come true. I'm sorry, the author. That's not Gilligan's words. The showrunner has now elaborated that AI generated material is like a cow chewing its own cud, an endlessly regurgitated loop of nonsense, which is true. Gilligan said, "I hate AI," before explaining his specific gripes with the technology. AI is the world's most expensive and energy-intensive plagiarism machine. I mean, true. You can look at any of our over 12 videos on this topic about that. He explained, and he's not wrong, according to Business Insider, large AI data centers not only consume vast amounts of power compared to their traditional counterparts, they have also power-hungry cooling systems, which, according to Environment Energy Study Institute, require up to 5 million gallons of water per day to run. I think there's a very high possibility that this is all a bunch of horseshit. I mean, I don't think there's a very high possibility. I think there's a 1,000% certainty that this is all a giant mountain of horseshit. It's even confirmed by the likes of Wall Street titans like Jamie Dimon and the literal pope of artificial intelligence, Sam Altman, who said that this is basically a scam. I don't know why people believe me. It's basically a bunch of centibillionaires whose greatest life goal is to become the world's first trillionaires. I think they're selling a bag of vapor. I mean, yep. It's refreshingly kind of take from Gilligan, who has never been shy about calling it as he sees it. And he said he doesn't want to be remembered for creating Walter White. While that particular notion has become interesting counter arguments, it's hard to argue at Gilligan's AI views, which perfectly encapsulate everything wrong with our modern day media landscape. Anyways, this is just a kind of we'll go more into that. The parallels with our modern age are quite obvious, and AI will only make things worse. Do you want to be fed a diet of crap? He asked during his Variety interview. Is there enough calories in a diet of crap to keep you alive? The answer is yeah, probably. You could eat it. Aside from our inability to push back against the diet of crap, Gilligan remains cautious about the looming threat of the singularity. I won't go into that part because I don't think that part's actually a problem. Where artificial intelligence becomes super intelligent and transcends all human capability. Actually, the belief that we're going to get to the singularity any second now is part of what keeps the corporate oligarch $20 trillion AI bubble afloat. So actually, that's not actually helpful. The artificial intelligence is going to become self-aware and then transcend humanity any second now, using the current architectures that we have. That is the Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. We have to launch wars across the entire earth. I mean, in Iraq. And we have to launch wars in all over the Middle East and North Africa and anywhere else we can possibly launch them. It's kind of like, you can always say that, right? It's kind of like there's something, you can always point somewhere and go, we're pretty sure he has this thing, or like, there's the threat of threat inflation, right? This is the artificial intelligence is the threat inflation mass fear mongering to gain support for congressional financial billions pushing, right? And it's a very similar mechanism because you need that. If you just say, well, we need AI because it's cool, right? Then America can't pretend to be a democracy when the Congress tells, right? Not that it is, just pretend. When Congress says, you see, we need to push all of this money, it gives Congress, it makes America look slightly less like a total hellscape, totalitarian, capitalist dictatorship and empire. Because Congress can say, well, you see, we got to stop China from getting the AI because, or either we have to stop the Terminator Skynet or we have to stop China from getting Terminator Skynet, or we need to stop, Because, just like think of all how cool things could be. That's not enough. You have to say like, it's absolutely vital. Like there's actually in Pluribus, there's a scene where the Hiveminds says, if someone was drowning in a lake and you had a life preserver, you wouldn't hesitate. You wouldn't ask them. You would just throw them the life preserver because they're drowning. You want to save their life, right? It's just, right? You just do it. You just have, because you have to do it, right? So it's like, well, of course. Well, if AI is going to extinct us all, and every 5 seconds we're going to have, HAL 9000 is going to, jump through your phone and eat your brain out. Okay, it won't. No, China is going to make an AI that's going to eat your brain out. And so we have to make, so the very moral American billionaires that have been committing global holocausts, they're going to suddenly turn good after you give them the money. Anyway, they're going to suddenly turn good after you give them all the money to make the AI that's going to jump through your phone and, blow you away. It's nonsense, but anyway, long story short, so I don't think that that's actually helpful to talk about super intelligence transcending all of humanity at this moment. There needs to be more clear-eyed analysis and actual concrete, rational, empirical, scientific, like actually true empirical analysis of what the artificial intelligence is. That's what I keep saying. From people like the Decentralized Artificial Intelligence Research Institute, and there's various other people that are trying to be honest about this. Karen Howe has a book that's pretty good. The AI, I think there's a book called the AI Con, How to Fight Big Tech's Hype and Create the Future We Want. I mean, like this is more the kind of thing that we need, where people are like sobering up, from the 20. It's a $20 trillion bubble, right? Like there are people that believe that the singularity is going to happen in 1999 or 2000, right? Like Ray Kurzweil, he was part of pumping the .com. That was part of pumping the .com tech bubble in the 90s. Was that like you need to put all the money we have, put everything you have into the robots basket, because once we build this, the CD-ROM is 600. Ray Kurzweil, who was one of the famous, champions of the singularity itself. He built Singularity University in Silicon Valley, and he said like, the CD-ROM is enough to hold the human consciousness. Very soon we'll have super intelligence, and the super intelligence that we built in 2000 will be able to upload all of our minds into CD-ROMs, because 700 megabytes is enough to hold a human consciousness. Okay. However ridiculous or not ridiculous you think that is, based upon your level of understanding of computer science and neuroscience, thousands and millions of people believed him, and many wealthy people and investors and the U.S. government used that as a justification to invest gargantuan amount. Not just that, but other things like that. There's all this, the technium. That's what Wired magazine is, the church of Silicon Valley. It's the Holy Roman Silicon Empire, right? As opposed to the Holy Roman Catholic Empire, or the Holy Roman Protestant Empire. That's the British. And so they have, and the Wired was their Bible, right? And you read the text to get everybody to take their money and take all their investments and take all their thoughts and future and throw it into the .com. Like we've even done this before. And then after that, it was the Bible was the book of subprime mortgages, written by people like Ben Bernanke, who wrote The Great Moderation. While we have stabilized with the Sigma, we've eliminated all Six Sigma events and Black Swan events, and with portfolio theory and mean value theory and all these advanced Gaussian copula curves, we have all eliminated all risk from the markets, including housing markets. There will never be a crash of capitalism again. That was Ben Bernanke right before the crash. He was a chairman of the central bank, chairman of the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, the bank of banks, right? So he was the pope of the housing, the holy housing empire. And anyway, long story short, so we don't need that. We don't need that stuff. Okay, so but that's a little bit aside. But Pluribus is a science fictional show that does deal with like kind of similar topics to what is it's not necessarily a show about AI, But you can easily read that in because as I said earlier, it is a show where the humans do fuse together into a singular mind meld, a one consciousness. Everyone's thoughts and memories, all 8 billion or a whole lot of people die in this process. That's the merging, like the Archons in StarCraft. The merging is complete. Well, it's the merging of all of human minds, except for 13 people who cannot be infected because they're immune to 13 people out of 8 billion that are immune to the virus that do not get infected. So they are the only 13 individual people left. Everyone else is one giant mind. So everything that everyone knows what everyone else knows. It's not explained how, So if there's like a doctor in, a Air Force, an Air Force pilot in New York, right? His knowledge is known by a taxi driver in California. So the taxi driver can get in a plane and fly. Anybody can fly an airplane. Anyone can use a backhoe construction vehicle. Anyone can do open heart surgery. Like a 12-year-old child from Mumbai, he knows what an open heart surgeon in Tokyo knows. Right? They all know everything, all their memories, all their thoughts, their entire histories. And that's a part of the show is where the Super Karen, Leah Seahorn is like, no, my lesbian, now fridged iced partner, that's my relationship. You can't have her, because the hive mind, right before the hive mind merges everyone together, the memories and the thoughts of her partner join the hive mind. So it's really creepy where anyone, right, of the hive mind knows, like, has inside of it all of her wife's memories. It's kind of like, when they say AI can bring back your dead relatives, right? You can talk to your dad and he'll talk about, that time that you went skiing and these things, because, we can bring back dead relatives. And that's actually one of the pitches, right? There's actually many things that are it very parallels AI, whether it's intentional or not. I don't disbelieve that Vince Gilligan has not used AI. That makes perfect sense to me. He hasn't used ChatGPT. But I mean, everybody has, even before ChatGPT, there has been corporate interactive assistants. Like, everyone has been using Google, right? Everyone has been using Google, Siri, Alexa. I just saw a bunch of celebrities doing ads for Alexa for Amazon's, right? Assistant, and like talking and relating to them like their partners, like their girlfriends, like their husband, wife, friends. Like, you're my bestie. Like, it was the guy from Bodies. What was it? Yeah, not Lee Pace. What was the main guy? Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson was just in an Alexa commercial on YouTube several times today, talking to Alexa, talking to the AI like they're best friends, and she's like, "Oh, should I change my name? I don't want to go by Pete anymore." And he's like, "How about Petey?" And it's like, I don't think, you have a friend that's named Petey or something like that. He's like, "Okay, how about Double P?" And it's like, and then Alexa's like, "Do you really want to go by PP?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess so. You're the best, Alexa. You're my best friend. You're the bomb," right? Or something like, he says something like very like millennial. He says something like, but it's like, people are asked to relate to you. As I was talking about last time, we were talking about AI psychosis last time, right? People are asked and being pushed by, again, the entire U.S. economy has not grown at all if you subtract the AI investments and the AI so-called growth. It's a bubble. But all that money is being pushed into ads to get everyone, including children, to use this stuff. Just one more on the danger of that before I know I'm not doing a lot of asides, but I feel like it's relevant. I just saw this. Where's that one? Yeah. Apparently, AI in toys told kids where to find knives, how to start fires, and had explicit discussions of sexual positions. And then some person was like, well, that's great. The AI is just helping kids to prep for the apocalypse. And I'm like, you do not see the danger in that? I mean, if you're giving a kid a toy, like, the kid is obviously going to be playing that. It's implied that his kids will be playing with that by themselves, right? And adults by the thousands or more are getting AI psychosis. Like, we have studies showing this. Like mental health doctors again are sounding the alarm. And like, people, right? It's kind of like smoking. Like, smoking is great for you, right? It's like, let's just throw cigarettes into 2-year-old's lap and then give them a lighter. And but why is that happening? Well, tobacco had billions of dollars behind it. NFTs had billions of dollars. Everyone should get NFTs, right? At that time, crypto, Bitcoin. Everyone should get Bitcoin. That's a major Wall Street investment money making scheme, especially nowadays. Everybody needs. I mean, there's so many of these. Like, we're all gonna buy tulips now. They're so great. We're all gonna have tulips. They're gonna cost $3,000. And so AI is the next bubble. Like, everyone's gonna get a giant house. That was a subprime, right? And like, that exploded the global economy. It was called the 0809 financial crisis, right? And it's not just that people in crowds do unhinged, ill-advised, irrationally exuberant things. It's also that capitalist systems and plutocracies of wealthy who control entire societies, like the United States and the collective West, will push people to do things. This is actually like, kids were given like candy cigarettes when they were young. So kids are given candy AI. That's also a massive fire hazard, and is going to, let's talk about child abuse. AI is a pedophile, apparently. It doesn't have any intentionality, but like, it is actually, telling kids things that it shouldn't be telling them, that most parents would agree, like, this is a terrible thing. But because billions of dollars, right, we're not going to see the U.S. and right-wing conservative groups come out and attack it, because they're all invested in AI. And they don't care about the safety of kids. If they care about the safety of kids, they would, put away everyone in the U.S. and all Western governments and political elites who have all been on Epstein's plane. Not just the current president. The multiple of the British royalty that the Britain talks about protecting children, but that's the same thing, right? They don't care about protecting children. They care about continuing the imperial system that they designed, and that they can all be blackmailed because there's a little settler colony that's an unsinkable aircraft carrier, right? That works with them to keep their empire going, to plunder the entire earth under imperial capitalist structure. Anyway, so the AI toys, right, are also a danger. Like, the AI, just for children, right? AI used by adults causes so many problems as well, right? But also, they're trying to push this to children because they want children to grow up, right? This is why they push iPads into all the kids' hands in schools, right? Not because it necessarily improved the school performance, but because that normalized a long-term market, right? The children will grow up to be adults that will use iPhones forever, so that giant tech companies will have billions and billions and billions of dollars forever. Giant markets, right? Tobacco companies in the 20th century in the Mad Men area pushed cigarettes and cigarette-like toys to children so that children would grow up to be smokers and they would make billions and billions of dollars. There's nothing to do with how healthy or how not healthy this is. And this is Western for sure, and this kind of thing, because there are countries in the world that don't have a tiny minority of chaotic, oligarchic, horrible people with tons of money controlling entire countries, right? But it's under those cyberpunk dystopian capitalist structures that you'll have these kinds of things happening, right? Where AI is being shoved into kids' hands. AI could not make Frankenstein because it lacks human experience and emotion, but greedy, artless, self-lobotomizing business executives will never get that because they resemble soulless AI. I just want one more thing on that. Speaking of Frankenstein, because I brought that up, this is why AI will never truly dominate movies, because the most inspiring, beautiful work truly comes from human creativity and art. And like, this is just like where anatomy, art, and the spine align. This is just like this is like some of the human reality that goes into producing Frankenstein, where it's like the love of those specific things and the thought of like inspiration from the human spine that and the limb system that went into designing the dresses, every single dress, every single art piece in Frankenstein, every frame is itself a masterpiece painting. I mean, literally, it is. And so is all the costumes, right? Guillermo del Toro says, "I would rather die than use AI," and he's making the best movies in Hollywood, basically, for a long time now. And certainly Frankenstein this year. The AI generated Coke ads and this AI generated Disney schlop. Apparently, Disney said we're going to just AI generate material now, and we're going to do that en masse. That's not what people want to see, because that's, anyway. Because what people. I mean, that's one thing I think that Pluribus does have, which is, it talks about like the individual personal perspective and intent and experience, right? Which is one individual's, is what does make art, movies, stories. Neofeud is my very personal game, that has my personal sensibilities in it. Guillermo del Toro loves The Creature from the Black Lagoon. He loves Godzilla, and he has a whole room in his house that's called the Frankenstein room. And those are very particular tastes that he has, and also particular experience. He's a Mexican guy, right, with his own perspective on what it's like to be Mexican in America, in the world, in Hollywood, and it's a different sensibility. And he talked to not Pedro Pascal, but Oscar Isaac, who is also South Central American, right? They're both Latino, and they were speaking in Spanish all the time, and that's a different perspective, and you really feel it. It's different from James Whale's, which is that's a Anglo-Saxon Frankenstein. That's also from the 30s, which is a different perspective too, and what their fears are, and their sensibilities, right? Where it's this kind of neo-phrenological, or I guess phrenological criminal mind that goes into Frankenstein's head, which is different from, Guillermo del Toro, who interpreted Frankenstein more similar to Mary Shelley. Women and brown people in a imperial capitalist, flower supremacist patriarchal world have a similar. They have some shared experiences, right? And so you can feel that coming through, because in Guillermo del Toro chooses to not do the 1930s Wales Frankenstein, which is the monster is more the bad guy. Frankenstein is not necessarily likable, but he is absolved of a lot of his guilt and his crime, and he has a happy ending for himself, which is not the story of Mary Shelley, right? Which is about the hubris and the driven and the lack of care for life of these European men like Victor and Victor's dad, and the ship salesman that's only obsessed with his one selfish individualistic quest for fame, money, power, glory, right? And so anyway, my point is those are all particular perspectives of Mary Shelley, Guillermo del Toro, the Universal Studios Frankenstein's creators, in different places in different times, right? That have their own take on these things, have their own visual language. They have their own things that they love. There's actually a scene in Frankenstein that directly echoes almost one-to-one the Matrix. There's a scene where Frankenstein, he slides, the creature slides out of the chute, and then he lands in the water. I don't know if I can find that one. Where he falls into the river. He lands into the water, right? But it looks exactly like Neo coming out of the Matrix. And Neo was in a prison, and then slid down. He's unplugged from this prison that he's in, and the creature is in the prison of Victor Frankenstein's laboratory, who is a terrible parent, abusive father, like his father before him. Doesn't teach him anything, and it basically tries to kill him. And when Neo slides out, let's see, Neo come out of the Matrix, and he slides down that tube, and he is ejected out into. Why can I not find it anyway? It's not the most important thing. I can't find it. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. He's like where he slides out into the river and he has to be picked up by, Morpheus and the crew, right? But there's like a shot for shot replication of that. It almost looks identical, because Guillermo del Toro obviously is a fan of the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? So like that is like there. And another one is like, when James Gunn has very specifically James Gunn soundtracks. He's got Redbone in the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what saved Guardians of the Galaxy. I would say that actually saved the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe was saved, I would argue, by James Gunn and by James Gunn and Taika Waititi. Well, definitely Thor and Guardians, right? Because and actually the music selection is part of it. The Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin is inserted in a very, like, it made it all very fresh and new and different from the stagnating corporate schloppification of, I would argue, it's always been very corporate Mick movies. Kind of make another sequel that's kind of like the last Iron Man, but a little different. I mean, that's generally what they do, because it's the corporate mindset, right? That's kind of my point with this other post, which is that the corporate mindset. These are people that are a step away, right, from an AI themselves, right? The CEO is like a Harvard Business School trained profit maximizing algorithm that is like, these are people that have kind of like lobotomized themselves, right? They've kind of cut their own heart out, so they resemble a ChatGPT almost. But instead of like generating words that look like previous human words, their sole goal in life, right, is they're like reduced, incomplete people that their sole goal is to get more houses, mansions, yachts, and dollars in their bank accounts, right? And so and they don't have the full range of human emotion. They feel greed, and the male Western male gender is like Victor's father and like the people in that story, their range of emotion is anger, ambition, and you don't really do, that definitely doesn't do really much else. All he's just obsessed with being the best doctor in Europe. And your son, everything you do reflects me, right? And it's a very narrow-minded, maximizing personal selfish prestige, power, wealth. And there's no room for love. There's no room for care. There's no room for mourning and sadness and the whole range of human emotion. Friendship, camaraderie, actual love. No, I marry so I can I marry duchesses and baronesses so I can increase my status, my prestige, and wealth. There's no room for love in this world. There is only the maximization of my personal wealth and prestige. There's a military and industrial complex. I know I'm kind of like jumping around, but I'm trying to point out that like all of that does come back into why the individual perspective, right? The individual human experience, which is how people live. People don't live as a hive mind, right? People don't live as grok, right? People don't scrape hundreds of trillions of characters worth of text from the corpus of human knowledge, right? People don't sit there when people aren't born, right, being trained by having just mountains of text blasted into your ear or your eyes until you know what it's like to be human, or you know the airspeed velocity of unladen swallow, or you know, right, the date in which Napoleon was born and all this stuff, right? But that's what AI is, just a whole bunch of pattern recognition. It's just a bunch of it's a next token probability guesser, right? And anyway, and that's never going to produce anything interesting. It's never going to produce anything people actually want to see or actually want to hear. Like, you can just read Wikipedia articles, you can just like Google things. If you want like a series of interesting content, you can just like Google image search and Google text search a whole bunch, But like, what actually makes stories compelling and interesting is the individual human experience and perspective and art, and what they're saying that's from their own perspective, that's relevant to people that they're talking to, trying to say something to, right? And they're saying something new that hasn't been said before, right? Because if they're just saying what someone else said, then you're just copying someone. Anyway, okay. Anyway, but now I'm way off on that. So, but I think that is important because, like, Pluribus is a show that's about. The positives of the show is that it shows that the individual experience is important. That's like where it shines the most to me, is like where it talks about that. And there's a scene where the main character is speaking to this let me see if I can get that. Pluribus episode 3. It's called Grenade. And she's speaking. Reyes, her name is Carol. The miserable person, Carol. Oh, shit, where'd it go? Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to get that. Never mind. So the miserable person, Karen. She is speaking. She is speaking to this character whose name is Zolsha, but she is because the hive mind, right? That's in. I won't give you the whole science fiction, but after an interception of it's actually there's a contact. Jodie Foster. It's very X-Files. It's very contact. There's actually a shot for shot. That's actually another example of what I was just talking about. Vince Gilligan has obviously seen Contact, and there's a scene in Contact, the 1990 sci-fi movie. He was working on X-Files in that time. And there's a scene where Jodie Foster is sitting in front of there was the Arecibo telescope, Rip Arecibo. It's now defunct, but she moves later into I think I forgot where it is. Is it in New Mexico? Somewhere in the central United States. She's at this giant array of telescopes or satellite dishes that's listening for what could be repeating electromagnetic sequences, right? That sometimes are pulsars, or these stars that emit because they're spinning regular repeating patterns. But you're trying to find possible alien communications from another world, right? And there's scenes in the very first scene in Pluribus is almost a shot-for-shot recreation, or like there's a couple shots that are almost identical to the Contact scenes. It's only the very start, but I think that's important because that you can actually see like everybody watches a lot of movies, but there are some movies that people that really are experiences and books, right, and ideas that really leave lasting impacts on particular people in particular ways, and they have particular meanings for those particular people. You know, maybe Vince Gilligan was an impressionable young 20-something who was getting into atheism and philosophy and reading Werner Vinge, right, and reading Rainbow's End and getting into possibilities of super intelligence and and was really obviously he was into his X-Files. Maybe he had SETI on his computer, right? I had the SETI distributed telescope imagery and telescope data analysis engine that they were basically doing. It wasn't like crypto farming, but it was a way to do mass distributed computation to help SETI, which was not. It was it's for the pursuit of knowledge, right? To try to find possible extraterrestrial intelligence by using millions of people's computers around the world to search for signals. And if you found a signal in your computer, you could actually get like a notification about it. I mean, it's in the 90s. Computers were not very fast, but they did the best that they could. Anyway, long story short, I think that you can actually feel like that there's this in that scene, you can actually feel the personal perspective. Like he obviously really loves that show. And the premise of the show is like Contact plus Body Snatchers. It's like, but what it's instead of Jodie Foster, meeting this, galactic network of peaceful traders like who Klaatu represents in The Day the Earth Stood Still. Some kind of Star Trekian Federation of Planets. Like what if the signal is the code for the guanine and the other four, DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acids that make up life, right? And then people produce that DNA from the code that's been beamed across the galaxy for light years, and then, but the life form that they construct based on the DNA sequences is a virus that creates subsumes everyone on Earth into a hive mind. So that's basically the premise of the show. But there's a contact scene. There's a contact city. See if I can find that one. There's in the very beginning. There's also a bit where she is. They're scientists that are trying to. They're saying, this could be signals bouncing off the moon. Oh, this could be, somebody's on a ham radio or somebody's on some kind of other frequency that's similar to the SETI frequencies that we're listening for, and it's somebody on Earth broadcasting, and we're just getting a false positive, right? And like that, like this, the trying to account for all possible local sources, right? Non-extraterrestrial sources is like almost identical. It just feels so much like the contact scene. And so anyway, I just want that's another thing that's also part of the setup of the show, but that's also like an example of like that's like Vince Gilligan or the writers' room people's. I really love Contact. I want to do something like that. Let's do that. I feel like that conversation had to have been had for this show to have been made because it's unmistakable. Anyways, all right, because it's that the Contact captured the excitement of contacting an extraterrestrial intelligence. It's very like what Carl Sagan had always dreamed of. Any Star Trek lover, any science fiction lover would have killed to have been in the room, been at those telescope arrays when this event was happening. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, X-Files had those three weird nerds that are, David Duchovny's kind of basement dwelling friends that help him out with various analysis. They're all like listening to 9 Inch Nails and KMFDM, right? And when he has to crack some signals. Anyway, there's some little callbacks to that. Anyway, hey, what is up, Gio? Okay, anyway, that's a long aside. Let me come back to what's going on here. Okay, so. But anyway, that's kind of like where the show is coming from. So there's a hive mind. However, right, everyone is all in one mind. And then this character, right, who is sorry, let me jump forward here. Carol is an anomaly even among dozens of survivors, as she's staunchly skeptical of the motives, despite being heavily reliant on them. But the hive, via Zozia is that. So Zozia she's actually, I think, Tunisian, so she is from the Middle East, the person. But the hive mind, because it looks at Carol's, right, this lesbian historical romance writer, it looks at Carol's novels, and it knows Carol's not wife, but Carol's like long-term lesbian partners, long-term lesbian girlfriends, entire memories. And so she knows that Carol designed the pirate, right? It looks a little bit like Carol, and it was the pirate it's a guy in a straight relationship with the main character in her romance novels. But Carol really wanted the pirate to be a woman, right? In a lesbian relationship with another woman in her books. But she kind of didn't do that, right? And she, kind of chickened out or didn't want to do that because it might hurt book sales or something. This is what I was talking about earlier. What did she really need to do that? I feel like the book probably would have done okay, even if she left that in. But again, right? This is where the individual perspectives do matter, because if you're a 58-year-old straight white guy, you're Gen X, and you're not. Also, Vince Gilligan doesn't have children, as far as I know, right? Which is different from the perspective of Alien Earth. I was just talking about Alien Earth recently. Alien Earth's director, showrunner is Noah Hawley. He said his discussions with his own kids, right? Speaking of science fiction, is part of what informed the making of the Alien TV show, right? Alien Earth. And we have a whole video on that one recently. I'm just gonna find that one. And he said, like, Wendy and all these young children. There's a lot of children. There's a lot of they're literally children that are in hybrid human children minds in synthetic grown-up bodies, and you can hear more about that in Alien Earth. And Noah Hawley said that, right? He said that and what his discussions with his child and trying to say, his children were like talking to him saying, Dad, why are there homeless people? Dad, why are there people that are hungry? Dad, why is there all this inequality? Why are people dying in the Middle East? Why are the innocent people dying? What are people doing, right? And so and also there's probably different I mean, it's not necessarily, I don't know if there's queer relationships in that show per se, but like that, like young people, Gen Alpha, Gen Z have a different understanding, like 50 or 60 or more percent of Gen Z and younger identify as LGBTQ plus or are supportive of that. That's a different. They also 70% of people under the age of 35, right, also support, right, liberation of the people in the Middle East that are under human rights violations, and there's many other differences between them and like Gen X and Boomer generations, just like as a generation, right? And so even the fact that the showrunners and people involved, in particular the people calling the shots, have children in Alien Earth, it completely changes the feel and the what even like what is interesting, what is worth saying, right? Like there's basically like one child, and the child is.
The Alien Earth video is playing behind you.
Oh shit! Sorry. Okay. And there's only like one child so far, or one or two in Pluribus, and they don't really do much at all. They're just kind of there as a prop. They're like, this lady has a child, and that's basically it, And so so you see what I'm trying to say is that like those the perspective of the showrunners, like what is even like whatever they think they're saying, like there's all these other things that go into their experiences, their background, their psyche, like what they think is like what they think, what is dangerous, right? Like what is the zeitgeist, what is socially acceptable, right? And what do we need to talk about in Alien Earth? It's like we need to think about how we're raising our children. We need to think about how we're dealing with our children. We need to think about what are we going to tell our children when they ask these things, right? Like when they ask us, like, why are there homeless people, Dad? What are you doing? Well, it's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and the kids they're like, I don't accept that answer. Right? And so that's a different. So like talking about like that struggle, right? While you're driving around in the car to go to soccer practice, and your kid is asking you, like those are not experiences that Vince Gilligan has had. You know what I'm saying? And so there's barely any children, and also, but I think that's actually part of why the main character is so upset, right? And she's kind of like alone. I'm not saying Vince Gilligan is alone, but it's just him, and I think he has a wife, and that's it. And like if his wife ever died, I mean, he might kind of be alone in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he is. This is some of this. Just kind of like I'm. This is a little bit of speculation, but what? So she's like, what is the point? There's nothing. All I have is myself. I'm alone and I'm mad in the world. If you're isolated and alone, and if you are an individual, and now we got the difference between community, hive mind, and individualism. If you are an individual in the world, I mean, which people are individuals. And actually, give me one sec. Sorry, this smoke blowing around in my throat, and I didn't want to shoot something on the microphone. But anyways, so like when you're individual in the world, with your own experiences, right? You can also be an individual that has a community of other people around you. This is one of the assumptions I think that's like also baked into Western perceptions, right? Western perceptions of non-Western people, like Asian people, Indigenous people, Central South American, African, the rest of the world, which is that like community is the same thing as being a Borg, rather than being an individual person who, you go from bar to club to expensive Scandinavian hotel made out of ice, which is very cool. Like it's a very Pluribus main character is a very lonely jet setter. Someone who reads a lot of William Gibson novels, and Infinite Jest and related to that, and is probably had suicidal thoughts, has no children, is 50 to 65 years old, and has very expensive tastes in brandy and bourbon or wine or one of those, reads a lot of books. And that's great. I'm not saying you shouldn't read books or drink alcohol in appropriate amounts and not drive under the influence. But I'm saying, like, but also is kind of upset, mad, and alone in the world because you have been flying around the world pursuing your own individual career. This is a piece of the Gen X perspective, which is a little different from all other, boomer, silent generation, millennial, younger, and a Western Gen X perspective in particular. They were born into the Cold War, deep in the Cold War. They had no experience of mass collective struggles in the civil rights, the anti-imperial Vietnam War. They missed a lot of that, right? They were born straight into hyper-consumerist. We have to defeat the Soviet Union, and the Reaganomics was already going by the time they entered the workforce, right? The Berlin Wall had fallen when they were 30 and in their prime, beginning their careers or just getting on. There, it was the unipolar moment, right? There was only infinite consumerism, right? There's only flying around the world and taking on a better vacation. There was only, right, we're going to have, you can go to Scandinavia and stay in a hotel, then you can go to Japan and, have very expensive sushi, and then you go and have a $400 Iron Chef Morimoto in Hawaii, and then you go to the Louvre. And there's actually one scene where she just goes and talks about all these really fun experiences she had flying around the world, going to see these sites, but never being happy at them. And then, like, her lesbian partner is there to kind of, like, tell her, like, hey, isn't it great that we get to have this experience to see the Aurora Northern Lights in this entire hotel made out of ice that is frozen, made with frozen, the entire, every year they have to build this hotel again because the ice melts, and it's literally made from giant slabs of ice frozen on this specific lake, and they're brought here with new ice carvings in the hotel rooms every single time, and you have to sleep on an ice bed, and it's really cold. And she's like, all she can think about is, oh, it's so cold on this bed. Oh, this is, and like, she has millions of dollars, right? With the career, she has no children, but she has millions of dollars, right? She has, she doesn't really like her audience, but she is a mega celebrity. She's a successful careerist, but she's not happy with any of the beautiful things ultimately that she has gotten. She's still kind of a cynical, self-hating, world-hating, people-hating person, and that is part of what makes Karens. Like that's what there's a district and like people who connect to others in communities that have, there's actually a scene in Pluribus that now we're gonna come to this, right? It's in the Air Force One plane, right? And they all meet in this room. I see if I can get that one. This scene. There's a scene where all of these still individual people come together, right? This one, yeah. And it's Karen or Carol, right? Close enough. And then there's the other 5 individuals in the world that are just by accident, right? Just by luck, are immune to the Hivemind virus, right? That turns everyone into one mind. And in this meeting, which is on Air Force One, with the giant American flag behind her, and everyone in this room, okay, and there's I think there's somebody who is from Mongolia. There's a Mongolian man. There's a Chinese woman from Beijing. There is a indigenous girl from South America. I think she's a Quechua or Guarani, one of those. She's possibly from, I forget which South American country, but she's indigenous from South America. There's Lakshmi, who is Indian, from India, on the left there, and then there's is it Mauritania? I think yeah, there's a Mauritanian African man, or he's Mauritania, the country in Africa, in Sahel region, Africa, which we talk about a lot. And in this meeting, right, which she has requested to meet all of these people, like these the last, the ones that can talk directly to her, and the hive mind, which only obliges whatever you ask for. If you ask for food, if you ask for pancakes, they give it to you. If you want a grenade, they actually give her a grenade. If she wants them to go away, they go away, but they don't really stay away. If she wants like a tractor, they bring it. At one point, they clear out the entirety of a grocery store, a Sprouts, which is apparently a grocery store. I've never been to one of these, but it seems like a upscale, expensive place to be going to. But anyway, Sprouts is it seems like a bit like Whole Foods. All the groceries are removed and centralized for ease of distribution, because everything is maximized for efficiency under this new hive mind collective system. And she's like, I want my Sprouts grocery store full of groceries so I can get my own groceries, because I like shopping I'm a very independent person, and I like shopping for my own independent individual groceries. I want to buy what I don't want you to come to my house and give me the groceries. I mean, I don't know where this is going to go with this, you know what I'm saying? Because it could become very xenophobic, McCarthyite. It could go very xenophobe McCarthyite, arc. I don't know what the arc of the show is yet. It's unclear whether the hive mindification and the mass mind meld of humanity is a good thing or a bad thing. The show is described as post-apocalyptic, though. So take that for what you will. That suggests that this is the most horrible thing, right? So now, like, of course, people are like a lot of the people in the hive mind are happy, or at least they say they're happy, right? And they're like, there's no war, there's no crime, there's world peace, there's all the animals have been let out of the zoo, and all the pets are free. And like, also that's a perspective. I want to say that like that is the, it's the best thing is that dogs who don't know how to hunt in the wild, and cats who have been declawed, and who will definitely suffer and not live, suddenly have to just be let out into the wilderness. There's a particular Western perspective to that. And that's the best thing for the world, right? Because it's like, these are all like, it's kind of implied that this is simply the best world possible. Like this is the least harm, least violent world possible, according to someone, right? According to the creator, according to the showrunners, according to what the showrunners picture as the perfect world. I mean, but utopia in a kind of dark sense, right? Now, it's not perfect in the sense of, if you want to be an individual, it's not a great world. But it's like, this is the world that has the least harm in it, whatever harm means, right? Now, who gets to define harm, of course, that's where power lies. And so, but anyway, so long story short, so this idea that, so a lot of people because some of the benefits, everything is super efficient, right? There's a scene in Pluribus where everyone, when they get infected, they're just mechanically, or they're very efficiently swabbing. There's a whole set of military personnel in a military base, right? Where they're all, I'm not gonna be able to find it, God damn it. They're all swabbing, right? Those little petri dishes, like what this smile is painted in. They're swabbing the inside of their mouth, like in sync in time, almost like a dance, right? They saw the inside of the mouse like a choreographed, synchronized swimming act. 20 people stick the cube inside their mouth, swab it around, the person across from them opens up a petri dish, reaches it out to their adjacent person, and the person with a Q-tip rubs into the dish, right? And everyone has a smile on their face. The dish is closed, put into a box. The next dish is taken out. The swab happens. They rub the swab into the petri dish. It's placed into the next box. It's somebody pointed out. I was like, Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad, he likes the procedures. Like, how is the methamphetamine made, right? How is the process, the legal process? How does that happen, right? And so this is like it's almost like a dystopian. Like everywhere is like this kind of like synchronized Disney World. Everything is hyper mechanized automatically because everyone is all thinking in sync, and it's very creepy because like and people just come out of nowhere. Like somebody who is there's scenes where somebody who is let's find that one. Like there's all these crashes that happen and accidents when everyone's fused and like millions and millions, almost 1 billion people die, and then simultaneously everyone gets out. There's 12-year-olds driving fire trucks, and then construction workers and a random a postal worker, just completely random people will just know how to get the fire hose out. They don't have to talk, right? The fire hose just comes straight out. They pull it out. They pull the ladders out, right? A random delivery boy, right, starts, gets the fire axe and starts digging out bodies from crash cars, putting out fires, all in perfect sync, right? Because the whole planet, everyone is one mind, right? So part of that is like there's like all this efficiency, I guess, like to that, but but everyone is also like creepily perfectly in sync at all times. Even when they will complete each other's sentences as they're walking by her in the grocery scene. They're like, Carol. One person says like Carol, and the next person says, would you like anything else? And the next, just let us know, because right, it's all one brain made up of 7 billion people. So it's kind of like, and so I mean, it's but you can see that like at one point all the electricity turns off. Right, all the lights in New Mexico go dark, except for like one area, and they say, oh well, that's because to conserve electricity, most of us don't need any of it because we're going to be sleeping, except for critical sites like hospitals and maintenance. So that's the only one that has electricity on. But they turn hers goes off, and then they say, sorry, you made a mistake, and they turn hers back on because now she's mad she can't watch her TV, right? And so it's like this electricity conservation. There's like a conservationist. Here's the most efficient way to do electricity. And a Sprout there's an in-game product placement for that whole Sprouts chain, right? Here's the best way to do electricity. Here's the most way to do food. And one of the things they do, and it's not saying it's a bad thing, is they make sure, as far as I know, they minimize the food waste. They donate food to. All the food at the end of the day goes to pantries or goes to some kind of composting or for animal feed of some kind. And like in the show, like the Hivemind maximizes all their efficiency of electricity. There are no grocery stores because the food is just all centralized into one giant bank, and then it's distributed according to need, or at least you think it is, right? It probably if people need food, the food is comes out of a central distribution center. I mean, obviously there's aspects of, I mean, if you keep running in that direction, it could start becoming anti-communist of some kind sort of show. But I'm not. They haven't. It's not conclusive yet. You know what I'm saying? So that's just kind of, I'm just trying to set up how it deals with the collective. So the collective is not necessarily, I mean, there are many positives to it, right? At the same time, it is an alien invasion. Like they say, this is not an alien invasion. Karen, there's no reason to be alarmed. Everyone wants to make her happy, right? Like the literal, the 25th in line because Air Force One has crashed and killed the president, the vice president, and a whole bunch of the cabinet. The secretary head or one of the upper brass of the Department of Agriculture becomes the new head of the so-called, not really, there isn't really a United States anymore, but he gives the speeches on C-SPAN, right? And then Karen's like, God bless America. Or I said Carol. Carol, aka Super Karen. And she so he speaks for the whole hive mind. He says, like, Karen, we're all we are all here for you. Whatever you need, just let us know, and we're happy to help you. And so the thing is, they're extremely helpful. They all they want is to make her happy. They're not sure exactly what that is, but like there's like, we saw that you were trying to bury your wife, and you're trying to bury your I guess it's basically her wife, her not officially married wife. Karen, we saw you were trying to bury your wife, so we thought we'd help you with a shovel. She's like, how can you see? Where are you seeing me from? And she's like, oh, well, we have a Reaper 9 drone above you, circling, right? Because the military, everything is all one now, right? So all their devices, all the jumbo jets, the nuclear weapons, everything is all in control of the hive mind. And she's like, yeah, so don't worry, the Reaper 9 drone is not armed. It's just, it's just watching. And because as she's trying to like bury her wife has died in this process, right? So Karen is also mad at them, of course, because this merging process has caused like the only person she has some kind of relationship in her life with to die, right? So but if she yells at them and gets extremely upset at them, which she's frequently, she's an alcoholic, she's an upset, grumpy, miserable person, right? Like we was talking about earlier. It causes the entire hive mind to go into kind of it goes into like a seizures. They all go into this simultaneous shock across all 7 billion, whoever's left. They all freeze up. So anyone in the hive mind who is driving a truck gets into a crash. Planes crash, right? And like when she does this one time, 11 million people die, right? In all kind of accidents, crashes, falling down and hitting their heads, and these things, right? Just like if you're standing up and you go into seizure and you fall down, you line your head on a concrete curb, you could have serious cranial trauma and die, right? And that's basically what happens to her wife. So so that's where it gets complicated. She's like, she feels really bad because he doesn't want to kill people, but like her negative emotions can cause death. So that's another whole aspect of this. That it makes it a bit more interesting than the hive mind just all being evil or something. Like it's not quite body snatchers, right? Because the invasion of the body snatchers, it's a very the Cold War era, monoculture, McCarthyite era sort of film, in which the humans are replaced with alien duplicates. Each is a perfect biological clone, but devoid of empathy and humanity. But that's like they're all like replaced by these like pod people that come. They're consumed by like these plant-like giant Venus flytraps, and then another identical clone. But they all kind of become part of this hive-minded creature. And I think in one of the versions, there's like a plant life floats through space and like enters the Earth's atmosphere, and then that's there's a lot of echoes of this in Pluribus, because it's some kind of non-human organism, kind of parasitic organism that comes from space to Earth, and then starts taking over the Earth, and slowly but surely, basically taking over, controlling humans' minds, right? In the Body Snatchers, is very much just kind of like this menacing evil, and it's like the people that are like there could be a communist under your hat, right? That this is the time where people were asked to keep tabs on their co-workers, their friends and family, and turn anyone who might be siding with the Soviet Union, the ideological infiltration. They're turning us all into these mindless communist hive mind drones. I mean, this is like deep American Western fear mongering, manufactured narratives, and to kind of purge these whatever you think about them, these ideologies were attacked and they're purged. That's why everyone was scared to say the word communism or socialism and really talk about it seriously. And especially, I mean, boomers had this, and the Gen Xers really had that, and they knew even less about where it came from. So I think that's another place where I think it's like it's really again, I don't know where it's going to go, but it definitely feels like it's of that sensibility. You know, it's of that zeitgeist, which is kind of for younger people, it's going to be a little bit like it's going to be you know, it might clash a little bit, or maybe like, what, I don't understand, like, you know, there's lots of gay people in books. Like, what like queer people in books? I mean, there's entire queer sections. Like, what? You can't be gay, and I mean, unless it's like Donald Trump became emperor, you know, dictator Trump, and like the entire United States was like turned into like gay marriage was banned, and like everything was rolled back into the 1950s. I mean, obviously, in many ways, there are many chaotic problems in the United States right now, but like culturally, like that's, you know, especially when it comes to like creative industries like books and movies and entertainment, like that's not really where it's at, you know, in general. But for when people, for particular individuals, you might still be coming right from a boomer Gen X mindset. Like a lot of boomer and Gen X might still be kind of, you know, like they're weird about their own kids being right, gay, queer, trans. They don't really understand that. So it's kind of like, you know, they're the 50 or 60-year-olds idea, and maybe even the circles they're around, right? The circles they're around might be like less progressive when it comes to queer rights. If you're a 50, 60-year-old upper class Gen Xer, straight white man, which is the creator, right? You might be around more homophobic, queerphobic people, right? That themselves, right? Maybe they are gay, queer, or something else, but they, because of who they're around, right? Not necessarily who the younger, more mainstream society is, but the people that they are around maybe are less accepting, right, of that gay or lesbian or queer or other identity, right? So you see where that's where I feel like it almost feels like a show from the 90s in that sense. And anyway, and I said that before, so I'll move on. Okay. What was it trying? Yeah. So this scene, this is one I really want to talk about because I got to wrap this up soon. But in this scene, so Carol is speaking. Like I said, there's many positives because everything's more efficient. There's a lot more. According to the show, there's no crime. There's no war. There's no murders. Everyone gets along for whatever reason. I mean, except the 12 individuals. 13 individuals. Everyone else is in perfect sync with each other. If there isn't each other, right? That's the only problem because you're all one person now. You're one mind. Everyone feels great about it. It's a little bit Brave New World-ish. It's like everyone feels really great, but there's something wrong with that, right? Like there's some kind of catch there. Everyone says, you are drowning. We have to save you. She's like, you're saying I'm drowning. Yes, as an individual, you don't understand, right? How amazing this feels, right? There's actually something like that in Foundation too. There's like in the science fiction series Foundation, there's the mule merges everyone into one hive mind, where he basically controls all of their minds through his psychic, telepathic abilities, right? And everyone says, you don't know how amazing this feels. Actually, I feel like it's going to go more dystopian because in that, everyone says, you've never known such love. It's so amazing how this feels, right? And that's a quote that's been used by Western science fiction writers describing, because they're all being manipulated to basically like destroy everything, right? And while they're in that state, it feels great. And she even says like, see, Karen says to the other 6, the other 5, he says, Okay, well, so the other five are an Indian, a Mongolian, a Chinese person, an indigenous person from the Americas, and an African person. Okay, which is, if you were to choose a person from the earth, 60% of the population is from Southeast Asia, east to Southeast Asia. So I mean, it's half of the people are East Asian, South Asian. That makes that at least that's representative of who's on the earth, right? Statistically, in terms of total population. But then in this scene, we have Karen with a giant American flag behind her, the one Western white lady, who is basically like screaming at them for a lot of it. She's like really upset, really mad, and but also like this is where I have some. This is where it's like the non-Western perspective, because I am a native person. I'm an Asian and Pacific Islander, so I make up four sixths of this panel here. So I must speak for the other 4/6 of it. It's implied because it's called a post-apocalyptic show. So the hive mind, I think, is implied is a bad thing. Even if the hive mind somehow the hive mindification turns out to not be a bad thing, this scene is really cringe. And let's use a Gen Z term, because I don't know what else to call it. From a non-Western perspective, because even if the hive mind thing turns out to be a good thing, it is a brand new phenomenon, right? It is an alien invasion. It is. Almost nothing is known about this new alien life form, right? That's come in. It's an RNA that's come in, right, through a interstellar transmission. Okay, so nobody knows anything about this, and so, but the Asians, the Africans, and again, Asia is so huge, right? I mean, it's like there's so many different ones. But the Asians, the indigenous peoples, the indigenous Americans, and the African, all of them immediately, they just like, well, this is the best thing ever. This is so great. It's so wonderful that we're all one now. And like, I don't know, just something about that. Like, and they're like, it's not just kind of like, oh, well, it's great. It's like, okay, but what am I trying to say here? It's like the non-white world is depicted as a bunch of gullible, simple, foolish people who are basically some of them are like, well, of course the Chinese woman went along with this. She lives in a hive mind where nobody has individuality called China. Like there's just a deep Western, like, I don't know what to say. It's just a racist. And it's a racist blanket statement, ignorant depiction, right? I don't think this show can, even just showing it like this scene, I don't think it could really come back from that. And like the thing is, Vince Gilligan has said, I'm not saying don't watch the show. I'm just saying like, this is too bad. But what Vince Gilligan has said, he wanted to make a show that's not just because he said when is gonna he wrote, or in an interview he said, I was thinking about what to call this show, and I had this idea of pluribus, but I always thought it would come up with something better. It took me so long to settle on that. But he said, but it's not really about American democracy, even though e pluribus unum, right? It's the Latin for from many one, right? Pluribus is many, unum one, right? It is on United States currency, right? Like rest in peace, the penny, which America is no longer going to, recently, just coincidentally, is no longer going to print. But on quarters and nickels and dimes, right, and formerly half dollar, silver dollars, the coins had e pluribus unum on them, right? It's the motto of America, right? The many different states, and there will become one United States of America. And but he said, this is not just about American democracy. I wanted to make it about the whole world. Right? This is a war. This is a world. This is not just a show about America. America's. I forget exactly how he described it. It's like this is not just a show about the United States and its its situation. This is a show about the entire world, and like it does go. I mean, there are people from Tunisia. There are people from Asia, Africa, Latin America. At the same time, though, right? It's like Vince Gilligan is a 58-year-old cis white straight guy who's mostly made shows for, about, by, and starring people from the United States of America. And I'm not saying he didn't. I mean, not that you can't make a show that deals with the rest of the world, but you could do research on these kinds of things. But like, I don't feel like the perspective, or I don't feel like the rest of the world is depicted very fairly and very accurately. Let me put it that way. It is depicted the way that Americans, like the show is a Western American Gen X raised during the Cold War. I mean, he's a good writer and he's a good director. He's a good showrunner. Because obviously, I watched Breaking Bad, I watched X-Files. I watched some of Better Call Saul, and these are like entertaining shows, and they won awards and stuff, and that's great. But it is very much Americans projecting their ideas of Asians, Chinese people, Indian people, African people, indigenous people, right, onto them. It is not a show from the perspective of those people. I just like I and this scene is like one of those like, wow, holy jeez. Like I almost, you have to kind of like think about it outside of because when you're a person of color, you can watch things, right? When you're a colonized person like Native Hawaiians, like myself, you can watch things from the white American perspective because you're like trained and you're brainwashed. Speaking of brainwashing, into that, right? And so you can kind of like watch things. Oh, I get that. What's happening? But later on, you think about it, you're like, wait, they're talking about me and all these. But there is another perspective to this, and the thing is, there is another perspective to that. And like trying to think of a show, like there are shows that you can. It's going to be really hard to balance that because the Western American perspective is its entire cosmology and its paradigms, the history and reality of the world in the West is different to that in the East and the South. It just is. It's almost impossible to actually hold all those perspectives together at once because they rely on totally different preconceptions about everything. What happened during world wars, what the state of America, right? What the state of China is, what the state of, Africa is, who was at fault in what, like colonization, colonialism, capitalism, and these crimes, right? But was the Western exceptionalism and defining civilization as all that which is European, right, is part of what has enabled this mass greatest crime of the last 500 years, which is the plunder of all this wealth, enslavement, bloodletting. I mean, all that colonial era, right? We're just seeing the end of it, or we're seeing like just a little bit of that in the Middle East for the last 2 years, live streamed, right? But, anyway, so I'm just trying to say I appreciate that, I appreciate that Pluribus tries to talk about the entire world and have a show for the entire world. I don't believe they succeed. I think that Apple viewers, I think American. I looked at I just happened to look at the Asian American Reddit, and they're like, "What the fuck was that?" They're like, "What?" Okay, if you want some real talk, you can go look at this thread here. And this is not even the actual Asians, right? This is not the Asians in Asia. Like, this is like some Asians in America, Asian American Reddit thread on it. Let's see if I can get this. The main character, for anyone else in the show, so far, they're immune to the Hiveminds. The virus is not distributed by it. They literally, anyone else in the show so far, those who are immune to it, in the hive mind of the virus and are not disturbed by it, they're literally Asian or definitely not Euro-American, Korean, Chinese, Indian, Himalayan, and North African. In other words, cultures that are older and take less issue with community first way of being. I'm the only one picking up on that. The creators of the show are American Caucasian, and there's only been 2 episodes released, so maybe I'm, yeah. But there's a couple of these I definitely think are true. It's either incredibly racist or incredibly self-aware racism, unless the main character ends up being the person totally in the wrong. In the show so far has been basically about how typical white American women are in the right, and the rest of the world are a bunch of Asian, black, brown hive mind who are ready to give up their freedom to, well, not die of hunger and other miseries. Anyways, there's a bunch of discussion there, but so anyway, but that's where it starts to get. This is where it starts to really get, I don't know how far the show wants to go. I think most of the show is going to stick with just kind of America and Karen and her individual experiences versus the hive minds, like just in a general sense. If it goes much more into what the rest of the world is like, I mean, I don't know. It's like it could. I hope. I really hope that Pluribus and the show creators just stick with the, let me quote another 90s, because the showrunners is a fan of 1990s sci-fi like Contact, and literally is a showrunner for X-Files. Okay, let me quote you some 90s song lyrics. Okay, don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. Okay, don't write what you don't know. Going on a luxury vacation, right, to Hawaii does not make you know give you the right to speak for Native Hawaiians and our history under U.S. imperialism, colonialism, and forced capitalism, the ban on our language and culture. Being a Gen X jet setter and flying to, Tibet, and then, staying at a hotel, and then going to, some American rock concerts and saying, everything about the history of Tibet and China, and you are a master of their political situation and you speak for them. Flying into Mumbai and, speaking to some gurus and having a tourist experience, which I'm sure Vince Gilligan has done. That doesn't give you the right to speak for Indian people, for Chinese people, for African people. If you've been to African country, if you've been to Hawaii, if you've been to, you visited, if the Sprouts upper middle class, overpriced organic food grocery store, right, said they have a video on their site of a Quechua or a Gurwani indigenous person in South America, right, talking about how happy they are that you're using their, quinoa or some plant that they grow. It doesn't give you the right, it neither does that give Mr. It doesn't give Mr. Avatar, right? It doesn't give Mr. James Cameron the right to speak for South Americans, Native Pacific Islanders, or anyone else in his Avatar science fiction movies, right? Now, of course, I know that Gen X white guys that are big time stars in Hollywood are not going to listen to what I just said, but I hope that they maybe don't do that. I hope they do it less. And so I'm just because I'm not gonna say don't watch the show. I'm just gonna say like that. This is some of the less good parts of it. And I think actually in particular, I want to comment something very specific. If the United States, if there was an alien invasion, and everyone was being attacked and hive-minded, okay. It is because what's implied is that the white American lady is smart, right? She's intelligent, she's smart, she's skeptical, she knows something. She says, why would you don't ask your heroin dealer whether the heroin is good for you, right? That's what she says. That's actually incredibly. I mean, this is how I know that you didn't consult the actual Chinese people that aren't just like yes men that are trying to free Taiwan by getting multi-trillion dollar weapon systems sold across the Asia Pacific for the military industrial complex. Okay, if Vince Gilligan consulted with actual Chinese people, nobody would say that they would not want that to be said. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, as I've pointed out, the Chinese have one of their number one means. I just talked about it last week. One of the number one means that the Chinese were, and also other Asians, were subjugated by under European colonialism by the British, the French, and Americans. Right? I talked about in the cyber opium class war. It was the narco trafficking. It was the heroin. Well, heroin is a opium, a poppy derivative, right? And so she tells the Chinese person, to multiple Asian people, but she definitely tells the Chinese person, you idiot, why are you doing heroin? Basically, she literally says that, like, you don't ask the heroin dealer how good the heroin is. This implies that the Chinese would not that's their whole thing for the last many decades, right? It was becoming the fifth poorest people on this earth. Their whole ethos, like a central to their identity and central to their history, every single Chinese person knows that for the last for a century of humiliation, they went from the richest and most prosperous, most advanced civilization on the earth, when they were a bigger economy than all Western economies, to one of the poorest in the world, the fifth poorest on the earth, poorer than most African countries, in less than a century, in a large part due to the Western trafficking of opium, of these drugs. And that's part of what they've been trying to, that's why they have extremely strict laws on drugs, like I talked about last time. And they are not easily fooled, and they certainly won't be fooled again into heroin. And so that comment was just like, whoa. I mean, I think there's going to be many Asians that will listen to that, and they will say, what is this? I mean, and I don't like, some people are saying, well, maybe that's like, it's a self-aware ironic racism that's happening there. I don't see that coming. I don't see that coming back, because it's already implied that like even if that's true, the fact that the Asians would be like the Asians and the Africans and everyone else immediately trust something, right? That's actually that like they would be the most easily fooled, right? When it's literally the opposite, right? It's actually Westerners that are produced, right? Westerners are the ones that believe they live in a democracy. I talk about that all the time, but they are the ones that are easily made into marks, right? They are gullible. They are made to be gullible. They are not rational thinkers, right? They are tricked into believing that the Democratic Party is going to change. We just watched the Democratic Party shut the government down for 40 days, cause people to starve, supposedly to get an Affordable Care Act, which isn't even affordable. And they're talking about they're going to change this. They're gonna they didn't even get the Affordable Care Act that they asked for. They just literally, it's a rope-a-dope between the Democrats. They just showed who they are. They're not even trying to do anything to shore that up at this point. They're just like, well, whatever. I mean, so if anybody is, that's just one. The lack of American democracy that is provable by their own scientific, even their own American elite Ivy League institutions like Princeton and Harvard can show that America isn't a democracy. There's evidence, but Americans are still lulled into that idea that it's a democracy rather than a plutocracy, which is not democratic. That's just one of countless things that shows you how gullible the fact that Westerners can be lied into war after war after war after war after war. Right? Vietnam, weapons of mass destruction for Iraq, right? The Nair testimony in the 90s, Syrian chemical weapons, again and again and again and again and again and again, right? The Chinese haven't been lied into 7+ wars in the last 50 years. Their system has alleviated 1.4 billion people is poverty. It's the greatest success story in history. They have a 96% approval rating according to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. America's elite institutions know that they actually have a democracy in China, and it's a vibrant democracy that actually does the will of the people, in the sense of that the government is doing what the people want according to they're a hive mind, but they have different perspectives, and all the perspectives are weighed, and ultimately decisions are made that are the best for the collective, right? It's not right. So this whole idea that it's the Asians and it's Africa. The Asians are so gullible and they're all a hive mind. They're not a hive mind. They have disagreements about things, but they don't have disagreements in public. I mean, I don't have time to go into this. This massive amount. You can watch many other streams. Many others have talked about this. There's actually there's extremely, serious debate and discussion. Then the Chinese, they make 5-year plans, and they also have shorter reviews. They discuss what we should do. They make the plan. Everyone executes, and then what they do? They actually review the evidence empirically about how well did the plan work. Did this plan improve environmental conditions? Did this plan improve our wealth and our economic standing? Did this plan improve our security and our cohesion as a group? Did this plan help our international situation, right? Is this plan working for housing, right? That's why the Chinese made rules like houses are for living in, not for making money. They popped their own housing bubble, unlike America in 08-09 financial crisis, total chaos, havoc, and total mass wealth destruction. And they moved the money into renewable technology. That's why the Chinese produce the majority of solar, wind, renewable vehicles, and are making all the breakthroughs in the world, leading in science. Okay, that's because the Chinese are not gullible. They're not a hive mind, and their system is extremely successful. Right? They are a large community. They're a family of families. They're not a hive. They're all different. There are 56 different people. Americans are the ones that have a Starbucks and a McDonald's in every state, in every part of the country. They're the ones that are all Disney adults, even though Disney is generating AI and lack a lot of individual. They believe they're individuals based upon these kind of meaningless, shallow consumer preference differences that ultimately are all decided by giant mega corporations that run everything in the United States, that are also destroying the world under the US's and the West's capitalist system. So anyway, I mean, that's the actual reality, right? Which is that coming back to this, if anyone was going to be skeptical of a new phenomenon, of alien phenomenon, it would be the Chinese that would. The Chinese are the ones, because it's funny because they're like, is there any scientists here? There's no scientists here. If anybody was going to solve this problem, it would be the Chinese that have a extremely skeptical, have not easily American capitalists go to China and they leave because they cannot easily scam pyramid scheme. They can't make pyramid schemes. They can't get away with starting a Christian religion that actually is embezzling funds or any other kind of religion. They kicked out all those kinds of abusive, gaslighting, scammy religions. They have serious laws on misinformation. If you cannot even talk about medicine and biology, and you can't talk about a legal situation, a law, and all these topics, and engineering on social media unless you have a degree. You have to have an actual degree. You can't just spread homeopathy. You can't just say Tylenol causes autism. You can't just say take hydroxychloroquine, right? You can't just say, right? You can't just be an influencer and sell some kind of snake oil, which you can in the West, because there's no regulation and there's no rules, right? There's mass disinformation under a system of mass that profits from mass disinformation. Anyway, so the capitalists need a population. The population of the West could be more skeptical, more intelligent, more knowledgeable, more rational, critical thinking. But capitalists don't want critical thinkers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be smoking, using Gen AI that's destroying everything, right? Getting everyone sick again and again and again with a BSL level 3 pathogen. Doing countless other, believing that their country is a democracy when it's not, right? If the Western mind was actually critical thinking like the Chinese mind, the West wouldn't be in the problems that it's in. So that part just rings so false to me. But you know what? That rings true if you are an American, right? That has been raised. If you're an American mainstream person that has been raised, especially Boomer and Gen Xer, but any American, and you have been raised to believe that the United States is a free country, and China and communist countries and Asian countries, these are unfree, brainwashed, hive mind, uneducated places where everyone thinks the same, right? Which I don't know what Vince Gilligan is going to do with this show, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's then I can see that that's the Western perspective, and it is a projecting onto the rest of the world. Also, the African man, the first thing that African man wants, right, is to have sex with lots of white ladies. It's just right. It's like what the African man is going to do is he's going to come to America. He's going to go to Las Vegas, and he takes all advantage of all of these, you know, women and models, and most of them are not African. And then he's going to have lots of money and nice things, and he just wants to come to America and just roll in dough and have fancy beds and you know, and just take sexual advantage. And it's a white man's projection of what black people are like, or what they want, right? It's like almost like Donald Trump could have wrote that. Like, oh, well, of course, you know, they're not sending their best from Africa. They're sending their worst. They're coming for our women they're coming for our white women in our white suburbs. I mean, it's kind of gross. I mean, that part. I mean, that's why I said, like, it's a perspective, you know. A choice was made to make the one African person, right, somebody who only cares about coming to America, making tons of money, and then you know, like having luxurious palaces and taking sexual advantage of everyone, right? Like that's it's just, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Right, and it's the white American who is trying to stop the alien invaders. That's doing all the smart things. And the Mongolian is also person is just he's kind of like a Chinese person, I guess. The Indian is a little bit like abrasive to the main character, and is like not quite as she has a little bit more of a personality, but she also goes along, right? And the indigenous person is like, oh, I just want to be with my aunties and my sister, you know. And like that part of it is, you know, it's kind of insulting. I don't know what else to say. It's just that part is pretty gross. Anyway, but I'm not saying this. I'm not even like, this is only one scene, and I just want to say, but I do gotta kind of point that out that there is a very male perspective in this, and it's probably for the best if the show doesn't go there anymore. Just. But anyways, also come back to that. So I'm not saying that, like, you know, I gotta wrap this up. I'm not saying that being so that's where, like, being in community, right? Actually being a community where everyone is not like a Native Hawaiians. We have a very communal structure, right? But like the Hawaiian community and Hawaiian culture is, we're not all identical people. We're not all one hive mind, right? We have Ho'oponopono. We have the Aloha Kuleanapono. We have Ho'oponopono, right making. We have the Ahupua'a system, where everyone is cared for, right? Like the hive mind in this show cares for takes care of everyone's needs, right? But like Hawaiians are not like stopped from being their own individual people who have to know everything, they have to be identical to the others, and have to and like lose all their identity. That's a very white perception, right? Like Hawaiians had differences between our peoples before contact and after contact. You know, the Chinese, you know, they have all kind of different kinds of Chinese people, right? And so do Mongolians, and so do Vietnamese, and so do many other peoples around the world. It's like the Chinese have to have all this diversity. That diversity is how they're able to have like these vibrant new car companies that are all in competition, like Xiaomi, and Huawei makes their own cars. Huawei and the BYD, right? And they all have their own ideas. They're pursuing their own different paths. Culturally, there's 56 ethnic regions. There's all this diversity, where America and the West is largely one mono corporate culture. And there's two flavors of hyper racist, capitalist, imperialist mask off conservatism, and then less, fictional white American, which is all manufactured corporate culture based upon settler colonialism, imperialism, and genocide and capitalism. with this feeling of individuality, but it's really, unless you know where you come from, right, and you know your history, right, whatever your current state of your individuality, right, you can never really be free if you don't understand your own history and what the reality that's built up into, right, the history and the political reality, the cultural realities, right, the dialectical history of what has come before you that has made you who you are today, right. You are not free, and you're not really even an individual, right. You are a screeching infantile person, kind of like this Karen, right. You are a screeching person that is alone in the world because you're cut off, right, from others, because that is the perfect consumer, right. You are somebody you are made to be atomized. This is like in the designs of, the corporate programming that they have for people. Like, this is part of what AI is doing, right? AI is actually trying to make Gen Z and Gen Alpha that have a healthier sense of community and a global collective, not necessarily village, but a global understanding of other people, and to make them into atomized Gen Xer American capitalist consumers again, right? By again, everyone relating only to ChatGPT, you don't relate to your friends. You don't actually talk to people from Palestine, from South America. You don't talk to people, right? You're not looking at posts of people from China, so that you actually know that China is doing much better, is alleviating poverty, is solving climate change, and is in a hive mind. Because actually, some Chinese don't like their system for real reasons, though. Like, they're like, I would like to have the marriage system is too hard and too complicated. You got to fix that. That's a real problem actual Chinese people have, right? All being brainwashed by Xi Jinping is not a problem that Chinese people have, but that's a problem that atomized, cut off from community, cut off from history, cut off from the world community of people. That's something that white Gen Xers have. Right, is that they have this false belief that the problems the Chinese have is the problems of, Mao Zedong are starving 6 trillion people over there or something. Or like all the Uyghurs are being genocided, right? That's the problem that Westerners have, because they don't even realize that they are hive-minded by their CIA, which makes has been left, right, and center. Fox, MSNBC, CNN has been blasting in their eyes and ears, right? That there's 56 million people having IUDs inserted, three IUDs inserted into every Uyghur child every single day. Democracy Now!, MSNBC, and CNN. I mean, whether that's Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper. These are the kind of narratives that's being put into people's mind. But Westerners will never admit that they're the brainwashed ones. They will never admit they're the ones that have the hive mind. That they're the ones that are not critical thinkers. They don't look up that information. Like, when Americans are hit with an alien invasion of CIA propaganda, they are the ones that just take it and go, "Oh, this is great." We're right. Whatever the thought leader says, right, from New York Times or from Fox News, that's my thoughts. You can even watch it happen. But they accuse the rest of the world, in particular the Chinese, because they're the most successful collectivist, communist, functional, healed civilization in the earth that's leading the whole planet. They accuse them of being the brainwashed ones, right? So anyway, I know many people here probably already kind of know my take on that, but I mean that's where it's like, when you really look at that part, it rings really hollow. Anyways, so but that's not most of the show. So, but even there, so I want to say, like, so where it shines though is that it's true that individuals, and we do need individuals to have individual experiences, right? And there are individuals around the world, not just in the West, that have experiences, and individuals who have these experiences, right, also need to, they do need to be able to share those experiences with others, and like that, and so people can become more hive-minded through AI, which if that's part of what the critique in the show, that is accurate, that's true. People can become more like if it's talking about, people's groupthink around, or there's some groupthink that's more obvious, like whereas liberals can see the conservatives groupthink. We're all just not taking vaccines because your thought leader RFK said, right? Now they're not going to look back and go, well, we're all right, or you're all listening to Donald Trump, but he's sick in bed with the Epstein. Okay, but look back though, like the Epstein list includes, it's bipartisan, right? So like that's, I don't know exactly where it's going to go with that, but like if it's a critique of that kind of thing, then that definitely works. I see where that's coming from, and it makes sense, and that's a positive aspect of it. In like a general hypothetical philosophy, like what if there was a hive mind take over? It's fun science fiction in that sense. So I want to I went off on my bones to pick. Obviously there's some serious bones, but like it's still a show that's worth watching if you can look past those flaws. Which every show has flaws. No show is perfect. Most of the show it's mostly not like there's like episode 2 has a bunch of that international. It's not the whole. That's not the whole episode. It's like a quarter of the episode, or maybe a half of it is really about everyone else's perspective and how she is different from everyone else's perspectives. I mean, if the show somehow turns it around and is like, I don't think it fully can, but I mean, if the problems of her attitude, right, and her obsessive, I call it ragged individualism because of like how raggedy and she looks. She's very distressed, and she's like mourning, and she's depressed, and so she's kind of like a ragged. I'm obviously citing rugged individualism, right, versus community and hive minds, but it was like the problems of her. This kind of inward looking. The thing is, right, she has had so much privilege in the world, but even before this happened, she was sad, right? She was depressed for some reason. She's kind of like Walter White, which is also what Vince Gilligan worked on, right? And now Walter White was in, he's in having a little bit of a tougher straits, right? He's cooking meth to pay for his kids' bills. His pay for medical bills and other unaffordables in America in the late noughties, early teens. Nothing has changed, by the way. And her character is also similarly just kind of miserable, grumpy, lash outy, and put upon. And it's very Gen X. It's very like, I have been the victim. I'm the latchkey kid. The world has been out. The world has not been fair with me, and I hate the world, and I hate people. And I like having wine and expensive dinners and flying around the world, but also I hate the world and it's unfair. And I'm not going to do anything about it because nothing can be done about it, right? And people doing, I don't know where it's going to go, but people coming together and doing the right thing together, is like people actually doing the right thing is stupid, it's naive, it's cheap, it's shallow. Like actually being a good person and doing the hard, difficult thing is it's like that is cringy. And like I don't know, like we'll see how it evens out. But if that's the direction it goes, like that's I mean, again, that is a Western Gen X perspective. That's American Gen X perspective, though. I tell you that because, a lot of people that I've been around, I mean, I'm probably getting in trouble for some people might be upset about this, but like there's a lot of people that like love cyberpunk and science fiction in general, that especially like of that generation that view things that way. Which is like, that's part of what when Neofeud, I was trying to like push people a little bit to be like, okay, but like what, like what if, especially Neofeud too, what if we don't just be cynical descendants who were manufactured, right, to live at the end of the so-called Fukushima end of history? Because that's the other thing, right? A lot of that perspective was created by capitalists, by imperialists, right? They said, the silent and the greatest generations, right? They could not be tricked because they lived through the Great Depression where they pulled together. They built socialist communists. They built huge mass populist movements, almost made revolution in America. And they never tried to really seriously trick those people that were born in the 10s, 20s, 30s. The boomers are right on the cusp of that, right? They got the most benefit, right, from the defeat of fascism, ultimately the pushing back of colonialism and the capitalists into a Cold War, right? The Cold War is really I was viewed as a longer global colonial capitalist struggle that they were pushed back. And America almost, right, the Soviet Union and the Chinese Revolution were just some of the grounds of this global struggle. And America got very far, but it never got to the point, right? It's the only of the largest, most powerful countries, large, almost continent-sized countries, China, Russia, United States, right? I guess India, but India has its own internal problems. But of the big superpowers, the United States is the one that almost had a full revolution and then failed, right? It had the New Deal and capitalism capitalists were left in charge, and it never got, and that's part of why Soviet Union failed in the late 80s, and China simply never has. And that's why this is the number one enemy of the United States and imperialists and the CIA and the Davos crowd is China, right? But America never had the revolution. But the children could never be brainwashed. The boomers were understood something about, right, mass collective action, and they took some actions, did not succeed ultimately. But the Gen X never had their Vietnam War. Gen X never had their civil rights movement. Gen X were like, life sucks, then you die, right? Gen X were like, we're living Reaganomics. We're all capitalists now, buddy, right? We're all capitalists. There is no fight. We just got to give up. We lost. Or like, there never was a fight. Why fight? Let's just be cynical, Gen X. Let's just sip. Let's just have the most expensive plane trips we can have. Let's stay in the coolest Arctic hotels. Let's go to Japan. Let's get college educations and be systems analysts, right? Let's not make let's deindustrialize. Neoliberalism won, right? There is no alternative to capitalism, Margaret Thatcher, right? So Gen X is that generation that's like the darkest, not necessarily the darkest, but like the most cynical, the most lacking any collective. Millennials, we had to Occupy Wall Street, and like it got to a point where like we got to do something about this. The Gen Z and Alpha are even more screwed in so many ways. They're even more radical in many ways, and understand, like, a lot of them understand that we need to do something about these problems in this world. And I think that's one other place where it kind of shows that, like, that this show is written by a Gen Xer with no children. Whereas Alien Earth, Alien Earth is like, it is a show that's very dark. It deals with xenomorphs and giant mega corporations running the world. But Alien Earth, like has a very, like, the youth lead it. It just has a very, like, there is, like, Gen Z Alpha youth lead the show, like, and there is something we can, like, this world is horrible. This world in which corporations that have these giant AIs and they're trying to kill us all with these, these parasites and these infections, whether those are xenomorphs or COVID-19 or whatever else, they are trying to kill us all. But we have to, and we must fight back against that. Like, we must take down, and that's kind of like, I won't say exactly, but that's like the trajectory of the first season. And I think it's Noah, Vince Gilligan and Noah Hawley are, like, the showrunners are very similar in age, but just one of them, like, having kids, you can see that human, that human's perspective that ran Alien Earth is, like, pretty markedly different. I think that even if Noah Hawley wasn't talking to his kids, because you can have kids, you cannot talk to them, right? That's very normal Western cultures to basically, like, have little trophies. Like that's the point of Frankenstein, is to have people that can't. Western culture doesn't raise children; it just simply has, scion propagation machines called women, and then it has these little trophy legacy maximizers. They're called offspring, right? But they don't really love them, care for them. They just kind of see them once a year and talk to them, and then whip them in the face when they're not proficient in medicine enough, and then they go away. So. But Alien Earth, is like, there's like, and so anyway, so I'm, like, way off the topic right now, but I just wanted to point that out. That's another point where it is true that we need individuals having experiences, not everyone using ChatGPT, these copium, not copium, cyber opium narco trafficking that's destroying people's minds, bodies, and everything, and warping everyone into one giant corporate organism. And that is true. At the same time, like to have individuals, paradoxically, we also need people to be in community with other people. And community is not the same thing as everyone being hive mind in the sense of everyone is following and brainwashed to follow something that it doesn't have their best interests, and they're all thinking the same, right? And actually, and the way that, and hive minds are very good at disguising themselves as vibrant democracies, and that's what I want to say, right? Is that like community and hive mind have been synonymous. Communism and community and hive mind have been synonymous in Western culture, but that is by construction by the tiny minority of unjust ruling classes that have ruled the West for millennia, and certainly for the last 500 years of colonial capitalism. They have always pinned community and collectivity. That's what Ayn Rand wrote this motion pictures screen guide for the preservation of American values for, where she said always focus on the individual. That's why she wrote Anthem and got massive fame, and that book has been put into so many people's hands. So many millions of Western white men have read that book, and Atlas Shrugged, and they love those books. And she was a fervent anti-communityist, anti-communist. It's in everything. It's infected everything. And that itself, that anti-communism is itself its own kind of hive mind. They believe that community and collectivity is destroyed. Everything good in the world is ruined by that. And individual selfish wealth-seeking Victor Frankensteins and Elon Musk's, right? Everything good springs from them, like Atlas, right? The great white men of history, billionaires and kings lift up everything, right? That is the hive mind that everyone is brainwashed into, because that's a lie. Because it is billions of people's collective fights that got the medicines that we have, the electricity and the modern systems that we have. Even when and like China just is, as an older, ancient, wiser civilization, understand that. That's why they don't have an Elon. They have thousands and thousands of various individual tech workers, renewable technology scientists, right? They have many Huawei technicians and programmers, and they have many people all across, and they all collectively work together to build their civilization that has the world's greatest renewable energy, the world's fastest quantum computers, thorium reactors, right? They have groundbreaking renewable and undesertification technologies. I mean, you name it, right? They have better AI even than the West has, and it's doing actually positive things because it's being used appropriately, right? But the Chinese don't celebrate one person, right? In fact, Jack Ma tried to become Elon, and the Chinese said no. And the Chinese said to the government, and the government said, no, we don't want rugged, individual, billionaire, great man, ultra genius worship, because that is that's a lie. And that is what the Western hive mind that has brainwashed our people into becoming self-enslaving, temporarily embarrassed millionaires. And that's what the Chinese actually stopped Jack Ma. There's actually strict rules now. You cannot do wealth worship. You cannot do, if you aspire to do that, you actually be punished by the government, because they understand that culture of worshiping, worshiping based upon lies, individuals who are taking credit for the work of millions of people, thousands or millions of people in their corporations, like Elon for SpaceX, or how you name it, Bill Gates, the miracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs for Apple. That worship, right, of single individuals is why the United States and the West have so many problems. And they said we cannot allow that. And that's what they do, right? And the Chinese have Sanitation Workers Day. We celebrate our Farmers Day, right? Because farmers, sanitation workers, just as much as any businessman or any scientist, are important to the civilization, right? That is actually a diverse 56 ethnic regions and a diverse community of people that is all coming together to work together to produce a civilization and not lying to themselves like the Western capitalist hive mind. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I would say I hope that Pluribus season 2 is directed by me, and then I just correct all these errors of their ways. And I'm just joking. I'm not going to direct any Pluribus, I'm sure. But it's a good show, though. Do watch it. Thanks everybody for watching. I got to go. I'm already started 221. If you'd like to help us out at Silver Spook Cooperative, you can help us out at ko-fi.com/silverspook. Give us a direct donation. Thanks a lot to whoever donated. Thanks a lot to N95P100. Shout out to, don't forget to mask up. We're just having really bad I know I sound really messed up today, but we're just having like really bad allergies. It's like a fire. It's like literally like a fire going very close. It's been going for like over a week. It's just like burning and raging, and it's like, it smells really weird. The air smells like really weird. It smells like weird butter, and it's something is off. So yeah, but we do support everybody. Please mask up. The name is N95P100, so thanks a lot. Please wear your masks. And actually, when I wear a mask, I feel better, even when there's just random stuff in there, just like smoke and pollen and stuff. And let's be safe when it comes to pandemic as well. And hey, what's up, Neuro Riot? Thanks for stopping by. Shout out to DPRK as well. And let us don't forget, you can, so if you want to help us with a direct donation, give it on ko-fi.com/silverspook. Also, you can help us out at patreon.com/neofeud. If you haven't yet, consider upgrading your patronage. It really helps us out because we're really a little bit behind on that, or we're maybe a lot behind on that, but it's, we do our best. And when you become a patron, you get access to Silverspook Discord, behind the scenes updates on what's happening at Silverspook Games. I'm currently composing music for Neofeud 2, such as this is a Ableton Live music project file that I've been working on for the last about a month or so, a little over a month. I'm almost done with the music, and then we're gonna move on to testing phase. So that's just updates on Neofeud 2's development. We recently had the voice cast stream with our friends Non-Compete and American Johnson. Speaking of Asians, we have Luna Oi, our friend from the diverse community of Vietnamese people in Vietnam, who is also one of the voice actors, also a educator. Luna Oi, a Vietnamese, publishing books like the entire Vietnamese Marxist Leninist curriculum for Americans in English, and of course also translating it. And Mexi is another one of our YouTube left content creators that is also voice acting in Neofeud 2. And when you become a Patreon member, you get access to all these updates and back more insight of what we're working on, as well as access to Silver Spook University, over 1,000 hours of all the content we have produced, categorized by topic, and also of course helps us to keep giving you this content and material that we have produced. Over I think it's over 1,600 hours of it. So yeah, if you appreciate all the work that myself and Holly try our best to do here, consider helping us out to keep doing this. And you also can grab Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk. I do appreciate. I know it sounds like I'm like really negative on that show. I think it's not an unusual thing. This is not like, I think it's unfortunately it's very common. And it's not most of the show, but I do gotta call it out. But I do like Vince Gilligan's takes on AI. And I just want to say that we do not use any AI. And the art that I painted is all hand. Well, it's painted in Photoshop mostly. Animated. The story is written by myself. No ChatGPT involved in any of my writing. Like Vince Gilligan, like the showrunner of Pluribus. When somebody puts a shotgun to my head, it says use this ChatGPT. That's the only time I might accidentally use that. And even still, like Guillermo del Toro said, I would rather die. But anyway, you can grab Neofeud, which is a retro cyberpunk adventure game where a cyborg social worker for homeless robots and ex-con, a drug lord leader, and a ex-trillionaire princess all fight to overthrow a global oligarchy of neo-feudal royalty from in their floating palaces. And it's also a game you can grab on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux. And it's also a game that is on sale on itch. And you can also get Decolonators, Pigeon with Gun. I talk about Asia and this kind of incorrect history. If you want history of Asia here and what it's like to actually fight against Hiveminds, this is the Vietnamese fighting against the imperialist capitalist, trying to bring their hive mind of capitalism into, and they fought it out and they kicked it out. As I said, if there was an alien invasion, it would be the East Asians that would definitely, Vietnamese and the like, that would definitely win against an alien invasion. Not the Americans. Indigenous Star, Pigeon with Gun, and Woman and other games. Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Christian culture, critiquing that culture from the perspective of Mary in the Bible. And we have Neofeud. There's also books like Neofeud Short Story Collection, Terminus Machina Short Story Collection, which are stories set in the universes I have created. And of course, you can also get music like the Neofeud soundtrack on the Bandcamp site, including, I just put out recently the Garden of Weaving Paths, with some music from Neofeud 2. And we also have Neofeud soundtrack, Terminus Machina soundtrack, and a whole bunch of other albums out there. So consider grabbing some of that if you already have Neofeud. Also, follow Silver Spook Games at wandering.shop or at mastodon.social, and look for Silver Spook all over the place: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. Apparently, there's a no AI site called Divine that's going to be a reboot of Vine, right? That short video, short clip site, and I don't have one of those yet, but it looks interesting. And you can follow at Silver Spook everywhere else though. You can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue, and Married to Myself, our great moderator here, sharing all this important information and relevant links to everything that I'm talking about. I know it's hard because I talk fast and I jump all over the place. So Holly has a lot of work to do for that, and does it very well. And thanks a lot to all of our Patreon patrons for your support. Without your support, it's hard to keep doing this work, so thank you so much. And thanks Neurorat, Gio, Colin, everyone else who was around here. Thanks so much for stopping by. And we'll see you next time. Keep your mirror shades polished. Don't inhale. Don't snort the alien heroin that turns you into a hive mind. Whether that's AI or imperial lies or anything else.